Three.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another edition of The Fight Guys. I am Fernando Pimentel for The Fight Guys and BehindTheGloves.com in association with Pro Boxing Supplies. Returning crew,
Dominic Verdina for RingTV.com and IFL TV.
Cynthia Conti for my own YouTube channel and RingTV.com.
And Stephen Guarino, KO Artist Sports on YouTube.
as you can see to the left of me, we have K2 Managing Promoter Tom Loeffler. We are here to discuss many topics. Obviously, Canelo versus Triple G, the AJ versus Vladimir Klitschko rematch, and plenty of other things. So, first off, Tom, the promotional tour is done. The press tour is over. Canelo versus Triple G, September 16th at T-Mobile Arena. Obviously, we know what the fighters need to do right now. They're going into training camp. They're getting ready for the date. What do you, as a promoter, do to help promote the fight at this point in time?
Well, there's still a lot of things to do. All the promotional artwork, the marketing plan, through HBO, for the pay-per-view, for the ticket sales, coordinating everything with the MGM and T-Mobile up in Vegas. So there's really, even though the fight is set and the promotional tour, it was a whirlwind tour last week. But now there's a lot of things to lead up to it. The 24/7. We're going to do 24/7s. HBO's going to film under the lights.
Nice.
We're going to do a training video between Abel Sanchez and Eddie Reynoso on Ring TV as well. So
That's exciting.
there's a lot of different elements to this. Canelo is the biggest star that Under Armour has in boxing, and Triple G is the biggest star that Jordan has in boxing. So it's Jordan versus Under Armour. So it's a lot of interesting things. Canelo is sponsored by Hennessy. Triple G is sponsored by Chivas. So it's a lot of different combinations for the promotion.
I wanted to ask during the promotional tour, obviously you guys are all very close together all the time. Triple G and Canelo have talked about how they were friends before. And kind of in the past 2 years or so, kind of the build up to this fight, at least Canelo's kind of said that the friendship has kind of soured a little bit. I asked them both about it, but what were your kind of like when you kind of being there behind the scenes, kind of seeing their interaction together? Like, were they friendly together? Was it mostly like, it's business, we'll be friends later? Like, kind of what was that interaction like between both of them?
It was definitely business. I'd say it was cordial. I think the biggest word is they both respect each other. They've sparred with each other, a number of years ago. A few times, so they're very familiar with each other in the ring. Obviously, Canelo has gotten, more in the prime. I think it was about 5 years ago when they sparred with each other. So they both have a lot of respect for each other. Gennady thinks that Canelo is a special talent, and he really looks at this as a challenge where he can really let his skills shine. Abel Sanchez has said, we've never seen the best Triple G in the ring, and I think now, September 16th, you're going to see the best Triple G on display.
Well, when you say that, okay, we're going to take this back a little bit. I wasn't on the promotional tour. I was sick, so I couldn't even ask anyone any questions. Let's go back to March 18th. We're going back to Madison Square Garden when it was Triple G versus Jacobs.
Yeah, another sold-out show at Madison Square Garden.
And it was a great show, and that was a show that he won a unanimous decision, but that was a show that he was exposed, as everyone's saying. Do you think Canelo and his team watched that fight and said, let's make this fight happen, because he saw his weaknesses? It's been, what, 3 years in the making or more for you guys to hopefully make this?
Just about 2 years. When Canelo really wasn't on Triple G's radar screen until he beat Cotto and won the WBC middleweight title. He was always junior middleweight, and we tried to do the fight with Sergio Martinez. Sergio chose to fight Cotto first.
Yeah.
Cotto became middleweight champion, although he never fought at 160 pounds, and then he fought Canelo, who also didn't fight at 160 pounds. So we were kind of like stuck in that whole like washing machine of the WBC mandatory. But when Canelo beat Cotto, that's when they were kind of on a collision course. WBC ordered the mandatory. Canelo at that point last year chose not to fight him. He was actually exposed, supposedly against Kell Brook when a welterweight was landing punches on Triple G, had a big uppercut on him, and
Yeah.
somehow his orbital bone got fractured in the process. It was still
The first one.
He was still exposed. So
Kell Brook had moments.
yeah.
But you know what I do give Kell Brook? He stepped up to the plate to fight Gennady. 'cause-
No question. You know, it was a frustrating time
Mhm.
last year when Canelo didn't take the fight, when Gennady wanted to unify with Billy Joe Saunders. He was willing to go to the UK. Saunders, that discussion didn't go very far. Then Eddie Hearn heard that we were looking to go to the UK, or willing to go to the UK. And that's when he proposed to Eubank Jr., which
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
a great promotion over there. And then about a month later, Eddie said, you know what, they won't sign the contract. We can't finalize the deal. And then he said, well, he was having problems doing Kell Brook and Vargas at the time. So I said, let me call Kell, see if he'll take the fight. 2 hours later, he calls me back, he'll take the fight. we literally just changed the name from Eubank Jr. to Kell Brook. And that's how that fight got done. But going back to your original question, I think Canelo and Golden Boy were definitely watching the Jacobs fight. I wouldn't say because of that fight, the fight got made, but it certainly didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Put it that way. It didn't hurt. I mean, Oscar always said that we would do the fight in September 2017. Here we are. The fight's going to happen September 16th, so I got to give him credit for that. He stuck to his word. Canelo stuck to his word. Gennady really felt, you know, when they had a respect for each other from the sparring and a mutual respect for their talents, Gennady really felt disrespected when Canelo brought him in the ring and said, you know, basically the fight's going to happen, and then 2 weeks later vacated the title. So even when we signed the agreement right before the Chavez fight, literally the week of the Chavez fight, Gennady still didn't, somehow in his mind there was still a doubt, because he was supposed to fly up to Vegas on Friday. And he's like, nah, I don't really want to go on Friday. And we're like, you know, this would be a big deal. They want to announce the fight on HBO. If Canelo wins, if he doesn't get hurt, you know, they want to make the announcements. Right. Then Gennady flew up there. We were sitting in the front row watching the fight. Everyone on our side was hoping, you know, he didn't get injured, didn't get cut.
Right. That must be like nerve-wracking, right? Like, I don't like when their heads get close together, things like that. Like,
it's interesting when you're rooting for the guy that you're gonna fight next time.
That's true.
You know, and he has a lot of respect for Chavez Jr. Also, he's very close with the family, with Chavez Sr., and has a lot of respect for them. But we're certainly rooting for Canelo to win, to set up this fight, and that's what happened. And that was actually the highlight of that night, when Gennady came into the ring, kind of WWE style.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought that was more exciting than the
The
actual
actual fight.
True. Yeah.
Well, you got your $80 worth of.
A little bonus, yeah.
But when he, real fast, since there were so many fights this past or last year that didn't happen, frustrating for you and frustrating for Gennady, was he getting bored with the sport, or was he just kind of doubting, why isn't any fighter stepping up to the plate to take my belt? I mean, I'm not a fighter, but I would think if you want to be the #1 fighter, you're gonna fight that #1 fighter. Why is everyone so scared to fight him?
That's the way it's always been. I mean, I've been in boxing over 25 years. I've never experienced someone who has the marketability of Triple G, had, you know, multiple titles, and we're basically asking guys, okay, let's unify titles. Let's the champions fight each other to see who's the best fighter. And literally, I wouldn't even get a response. It wasn't even like, well, most people would ask for crazy money, but a lot of times it wasn't even, they wouldn't even engage in the negotiations. The best line, and this is what Peter Nelson at HBO always heard, was, you know, we'll fight Triple G, but not next, you know, next year maybe, but not in the next fight. Like, they weren't afraid of him, but they didn't want to fight him right away. And somehow they had to be more prepared to fight him. I mean, so many fighters had that answer for HBO, and then HBO, to their credit, said, okay, if we can't get the big names to fight Triple G, we're just going to keep putting him on the air against the guys that will actually fight him. And that's how we built the Triple G brand and the fan following that he had. He sold out MSG, sold out StubHub. He broke the record at StubHub for the ticket sales. He
Standing
sold out
room only, I remember that.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, that's a good idea.
that was one
Because
of the-
literally standing there is, I tell people all the time, it's one of the best arenas to watch boxing. And then I tell people literally you're standing above the seats and it's a good seat.
Yeah.
And so when you guys had that idea for standing room only, I was like, it's a damn good idea.
We had standing room, we had bleachers, we put an extra
Yeah.
Oh,
house
that's right.
some
Yeah, yeah,
bleachers.
yeah.
That was the first time for boxing that's ever happened, and that was that was one of my favorite fights ever, as far as the promotional side, because you're under the Southern California sky, and then you have that great energy for Rubio and for Triple G, and the Mexican fans were chanting Triple G. It was just, that was a special night. Yeah.
That walk-in was awesome too.
His walk-ins are always great.
Always.
I remember watching, where are they going? I was
Yeah,
like, oh my
yeah,
God.
no, it's
First like, where are they?
Yeah, that's what we kind of
I
started.
do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, we started that as a trademark for Triple G to walk through the fans as a respect for the fans coming out. I mean, we did that with Curtis Stevens, where we walked down the aisle at the theater in Madison Square Garden, and we just kind of continued it from there, and the fans really appreciate that.
Tom, can you elaborate a little more for us the excitement behind this build-up of Canelo versus Triple G, and what was Gennadi's reaction when he was told that the fight was going to happen? I need to hear this. I need to know.
For as frustrated as he was last year, you know, when what you had mentioned, I wouldn't say he was getting bored, but he was getting frustrated. He's just like, you know, what else do we have to do? How much money do we have to offer, you know, these people to fight? And you know, 23 knockouts in a row didn't make my job easy. You know, but as frustrated as he was last year, you know, he got the Danny Jacobs fight. That was a great fight. You have to give a lot of credit to Danny Jacobs. You know, physically he was bigger than Gennady, but he put on a great show. He really rose to the occasion. You know, under the spotlight of Madison Square Garden, on HBO pay-per-view, on, you know, it was all over you know, over 100 countries worldwide. So that really raised. That's one of those fights where you can say Danny lost the fight, but he really raised his profile. You know, he really gained a lot of respect.
A talented fighter.
You know, people were saying, you know, Gennady's going to knock him out, and I'm like, well, you know, Danny's a really good fighter. You know, and Gennady said he had a lot of respect for him. He knew him from the amateurs. He said, you know, he was the best amateur coming from the West Coast. You know, I'm sorry, from the East Coast. You know, which produces so many great fighters, and Gennady had a lot of respect for him. And you know, going 12 rounds, looking, you know, not superhuman, looking irregular. That I think that kind of helped make the fight with Canelo. And you know, here we are. As frustrated as he was last year, he's so excited for this fight, so motivated to get back in the training camp and all the promotional items that go with this. You know, a lot of fighters just kind of lock themselves in the camp.
Yeah.
They don't promote the fight. They don't promote themselves. And Gennady is that special talent where he's really exciting in the ring. He has a lot of respect for the sport and for his opponents outside the ring, and he'll also help promote and market the fight. And that's what's allowed us to take him from virtually unknown when he made his HBO debut in September 2012 to almost 5 years later to the day where he's going to be the biggest fight in the sport of boxing.
And he's by far one of the nicest people I've ever met outside the boxing ring. He's a sweet guy. Now, why has Gennady been vocal about retirement? Is that something he's just putting out there, or
He wasn't vocal. I mean, that was just, it was kind of a funny thing on TMZ when we were down there at the studio, and you know, he was saying, well, my wife wants to spend more time with me, so if I beat Canelo, maybe I'll retire.
Now it's become, he's gonna retire. He's gonna retire.
Time off is retiring.
I mean, he's been one of the most active champions. Really,
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
The most active champion, you know, in the last 5 years. As far as, you know, one time he fought 4 times a year. He's been averaging, you know, 3 title defenses per year. Last year was really an anomaly where he only fought twice. Since I started working with him, it was the first time he only fought twice. But we had the Canelo thing with the WBC. Then we had the delay with Danny Jacobs. We were supposed to fight in December, and that got pushed back to March. So there were a lot of factors. It wasn't because he didn't want to fight or couldn't fight 3 times a year, but a lot of times when you get to that level and you're dealing with mandatories, then you're kind of at the mercy of the other side as well. But you know, if he's successful September 16th, I think he'll deserve he'll get a much deserved rest, especially finally getting that big fight that he's been looking for.